Hola, Paradise Panther artists. My name is Mrs. Telfer, and I'm excited to be with you today to tell you about our next master artist, Frida Kahlo. Frida was a Mexican artist known for her bold and vibrant self-portraits. She was mostly self-taught and began painting after a bus accident left her with multiple injuries. Her work was heavily influenced by Mexican culture and tradition. So, vamos! Here we go, artists. Our master artist today is Frida Kahlo, and she has a fascinating family heritage, just like all of you. Frida was born in Mexico in a small town outside of Mexico City. I wonder if any of you have seen a wedding photograph of your ancestors or your parents. Well, let's look at a wedding photograph of Frida's parents. Frida's mother was of native Mexican and Spanish parents. Her father came to Mexico from Germany. He spoke both German and Spanish. As was the custom in Mexico, her parents gave her a long name: Magdalena Carmen Frida Kahlo y Calderón. But she was always called Frida, which means peace in German, her father's native language. Frida's father was a professional photographer and took these pictures of Frida and her sisters. Frida had 3 sisters, but her father seems to have a special love for Frida. She was full of life and very smart. He said of her, "She is the most like me." When Frida caught polio at the age of 6, her father helped her to recover by helping her exercise and take part in sports activities. The polio left one leg weak, and it never grew properly. Children today do not get polio because a medicine can prevent it. Frida started elementary school late because of the polio, but she did so well that she was able to attend the best high school in Mexico City. The school was a considerable distance from her home, so she had a long bus ride to and from school every day. She was one of only 35 girls among 2,000 boys. On her own, she started to study art history, and she took some art classes. But then, a terrible accident changed her life forever. Frida was 18 years old and riding in a bus on her way home from school when it was hit by a streetcar. She almost died from her injuries. She broke many bones in her body, including her spine. That is a serious injury. After several months of being in bed, she began to paint. She painted a memory from the bus accident years later. Here, we see many different people sitting on the bus, from a businessman with his money bag to a barefoot mother holding her baby wrapped in an orange rebozo or shawl. We even see someone who might be Frida. Without using your voice, raise a quiet hand if you see someone who might be Frida, and your teacher will call on you. Yes, the young girl on the right is someone who might be Frida in this painting. Great job. Thank you. You can put your hands down now. If you have ever had surgery, then you know that one operation is hard enough. But Frida went on to have at least 32 surgeries on her broken spine and right leg and foot over the next 29 years of her life. After some operations, she wore a plaster body cast and could not move her body for weeks. She spent many of her last years in a wheelchair, no longer able to walk, and wearing a tight leather corset to support her spine. After several months of not being able to get out of bed, Frida began to paint. Her lifetime of paintings show the sad and joyful times of her life. When she was well enough, Frida began to show her paintings to other artists. One of the artists to whom she showed her work was Diego Rivera. He was a famous Mexican artist. He liked her work and fell in love with Frida. They married when she was just 22 years old, but Frida's father was not happy about the marriage. Here is the wedding portrait that Frida painted of herself and Diego Rivera. Diego Rivera was over 6 feet tall, and tiny Frida adored him. In this double portrait, we see Frida dressed in native Mexican clothing, a red rebozo or shawl over a floor-length tiered green dress and sandals. She wears a necklace of Mexican jade beads, and her braided hair is woven with ribbons and pinned up in native Mexican style. Diego Rivera is wearing American-style clothing, a dark blue suit, a shirt, and a large belt with brown shoes. He holds his palette and brushes in his right hand, while his left hand delicately supports Frida's hand. She portrays him as the artist and not herself. I wonder why she did this. Maybe because she lived to support him, or she thought he was a better artist, or this was his profession. Men were artists and not women. Frida was very proud of her Mexican heritage and decorated their home with art, furniture, and ceramics from her country. She also wore only traditional Mexican dresses, shawls, and jewelry. Here we can see where Frida even decorated the walls with their names and artwork. After her marriage to Diego, Frida traveled a lot in the United States and Europe. Diego Rivera was a famous mural painter who was in great demand. A mural is a painting done on a wall or the ceiling. It can be on the inside or the outside of a building. They lived for many months in San Francisco, New York, and Detroit, while Diego worked on his murals. Frida walked the streets of these cities, proudly wearing her Mexican dress. She would make quite a sensation as heads turned to stare at this attractive woman wearing such colorful dress. Her beautiful clothing has been preserved and is on display in her home in Mexico. As time went on, her marriage to Diego Rivera became troubled, and they eventually were divorced, but then were later remarried. She began painting more and more. More than half of her paintings were self-portraits. They show the physical and emotional pain of her life. But she wasn't all alone, because she had many unusual pets. Many times she painted herself with them. I bet there isn't anyone in your class who has a pet monkey at home. But Frida did. Here, Frida and her pet spider monkey are looking at us. A red ribbon, which she braided into her hair, falls in loops around her neck and over to the monkey. She did this to show that the ribbon connects her to her monkey. The monkey is like her child, and I bet she felt less lonely when she had her pets with her. Here we can see texture in these paintings, in the monkey's fur, in Frida's hair, in the leaves, and even in the parrot's feathers. I would like to pet and feel all of these textures, the animal's fur and the feathers. Here, Frida doesn't look happy. In these self-portraits, she looks intently at us. Without using your voice and only using your hands, can you show me the shape of her unusual eyebrows? In the air, use your hands to show the shape of her eyebrows. Thank you. You can put your hands down now. The shape of her eyebrows reminded her of a pet that she liked. It was a bird in flight. Frida was very proud of her artistic eyebrows. The background of these paintings is made up of jungle-like dark green leaves. For Frida, leaves were a symbol for life, which was a constant struggle for her because of her poor health. You will see more leaves in the next portrait of Mariana Murillo, a friend's daughter. Here we see so many leaves. They are even on the girl's dress and her hair bow. Mariana is young and has her whole life ahead of her, so Frida painted a lot of leaves. Despite her lifelong struggle with poor health, Frida continued to paint. She taught art classes to children in Mexico City. She taught her students to be proud of their heritage. They studied, sang Mexican songs, and laughed together. Her students read about the history of art, and they went to the museum to sketch Mexican works of art. In this self-portrait, we don't see any pets. This self-portrait is different because Frida's hair hangs down, and also there are words in it. She stares out at us with a mask-like determination. So we know Frida must still be struggling with happiness and pain. The home in which she lived most of her life is called Casa Azul. This means the blue house in Spanish. You might be surprised at just how blue it is. As you can see, the house was painted in other bright colors besides blue, such as orange and green. It looks like the bright colors that Frida loved to wear. Today, the house is a museum in Mexico City, the capital of Mexico. It contains the paintings and collections of ceramics, toys, and art of Frida Kahlo. Let's meet Frida's favorite pet in her next painting. Sitting behind the fruit is her favorite parrot. His name was Bonito. Raise your hand if you have an idea about what the word bonito means in Spanish, and your teacher will call on you. Yes, bonito means pretty. And I bet Bonito enjoyed eating some of that fruit while he was sitting on the table. When she painted things that don't move, it is called a still life. Frida spent the last few years of her life having to lie down in bed because of her spinal problems that began with the bus accident. She didn't want to paint self-portraits anymore because she looked so sick. So she began painting the colorful fruit of Mexico instead. A helper would arrange the fruit on a table, and Frida would paint the still life while lying in bed. I bet it would be hard to paint that way. When an artist arranges things together in a painting, we call that the composition. In a still life painting, the artist can create their own original composition by placing things however they want. Notice how Frida painted the fruit so that it's close together and overlapping. I bet you might recognize some of this tropical fruit that grows in Mexico. Let's see which ones appear in the next still life. The only fruit in this still life is watermelons. But Frida made it look interesting by making them all different shapes and sizes. She liked to add writing to these paintings, just like she did in her self-portraits. Just 8 days before her death in July of 1954, Frida Kahlo finished this last still life painting and painted the words "Viva la vida," which means "Hooray for life," right on the watermelon. She was celebrating life. Sometimes Frida painted a small Mexican flag with its colors of red, green, and white stuck in the fruit with a toothpick. Frida died at the young age of 47, but left a collection of great paintings which express her love for her Mexican heritage. They also tell us about her unusual life. Today, she is considered to be one of the greatest painters from Mexico. Muy bien! Great job! I hope you enjoyed exploring the life and artwork of one of the greatest Mexican artists of all time, Frida Kahlo. In your art activity, you will use oil pastels to create a piece of artwork that features colorful parrots and fruit. You will imitate Frida's national pride and use vibrant colors just as she did. I will see you next time, Paradise Panther artists. Adios, and have a great day.